How old were you when your parents told you these stories?
So basically, my parents told me short stories throughout my childhood, mostly when I got bad grades or took things for granted. My mom and dad are always telling me that when they were my age, they didn't have the luxury to drive or bus to school. They had to actually walk a few miles to school. And they also didn't have a lot of the stuff that I have today.
How did you feel while they were telling you the stories?
Although the stories were very overwhelming and intense, I felt that I wanted to know more. This part of history was very emotional on my parents, so they didn't really want to share too much. At the same time, it was very eye-opening and gave me a background on my roots and where I came from, and it adds to the development of my identity.
How much do you know about the Vietnam War?
To be honest, I don't really know much about the Vietnam War. My minimal knowledge about it usually came from history books that I read in throughout elementary school or high school, and usually these textbooks were written by white privileged males or just white people in general. So just hearing these short stories from my parents, I felt embarrassed that I didn't know much about my history, and I feel like I can learn more from it.
How has hearing the stories impacted your views on the war?
It really showed me how much war can have an impact on families, um, especially how my parents' family were separated, with the eldest son having to come to the United States in hope for a better life and to support his family. And also just hearing the stories changed my view on the war, just because it was, when my parents told me the stories, it was just so different from how the teachers and instructors and stuff, how they explained it, or how the books explained it when I was like in middle school or high school.
Did hearing the stories help you understand more about the war?
Hearing their stories really gave me a secondhand experience of what the war was really like and how it affected people on a certain level. History was always written in terms of the winner, and in this case of the Vietnam War, even though the Communist Party did win, the US still managed to, I guess, tweak it so that they still came out as successful and heroes. There's actually a lot of forgotten history that is not told in terms of um, narratives, like, as in, there are a lot of stories that aren't told from the perspective of the people that were actually there. Like the people such as the families that were living there at the time, or the one people that actually immigrated over to the United States.
Why do you think your dad was resistant to telling you the story?
I think my parents were resistant to telling the story because maybe to my parents it was a very dark time for them. They were really struggling and fighting to live and had to relocate their entire life in hope for a better one. They left the past behind them, and they tend to look at the present and towards the future, and working hard to ensure that their children have a successful future. Out of respect, I didn't try to pressure my dad into really retelling the story or going too much in depth, because I could see that he was a little uncomfortable telling it, and but I did get as much as I could out of him so that I could create this narrative.
How has this entry shaped your life?
Just hearing how much my parents have sacrificed for me and how much they've given up to create a better life for me, it has motivated me to strive to succeed in school and make them proud.